Good morning, good morning. My name's Emma Gladstone and I'm the Artistic Director of Rolex Arts Festival. A very warm welcome to our final morning here at Athens Conservatoire. Over the festival we've been focusing on three aspects of how mentors and protégés work. The impact of it, the legacy from it, and the relationship itself. And this morning, this talk, Creative Alchemy, is specifically about that relationship and how and why it works. We've got two mentors and three protégés, and before I go any further, I'm going to allow our chair, Orestis Andreadakis, who's the Artistic Director of Thessaloniki Film Festival, to introduce them and bring them on stage. So I'd like to ask Orestis to join us, please.
Kalimera. Good morning. Bonjour. Welcome to the second day of the Rolex Arts Festival, celebrating 20 years of mentoring. A celebration to mark the 20th anniversary of the Rolex Mentor and Protégé Arts Initiative, an international philanthropic program that pairs masters in their discipline with emerging talents for a year of one-to-one creative exchange. For the first time, the Rolex takes its mentoring program to the Greek capital, and we're very thankful and proud, along with dozens of the world's most talented artists. Today, we present an eclectic group of Rolex fellows and mentors. First, we have two mentors. The musician Zakir Hussain from India. The preeminent classical tabla virtuoso of our time was born in Mumbai and began touring at the age of 12, following in the footsteps of his father, the legendary Ala Rakha. He began his global career in 1970, collaborating with artists as diverse as Van Morrison, George Harrison, Yo-Yo Ma, in a career which has seen him at the helm of many genre-defined collaborations. He won a Grammy Award in 4 nominations, and he has starred in and scored music for films. He has composed 4 concertos, numerous original works, and has taught in Princeton and Stanford, garnering several honorary doctorates from prestigious universities worldwide. Zakir Hussain mentored American drummer Marcus Gilmore in 2018. The visual artist Carrie Mae Weems from United States. Carrie Mae Weems is a conceptual artist known for her artistic interrogation of systems as they relate to the construction of power, race, gender, and class in visual representation. Her artistic practice is primarily photographic, but also interrogates text, fabric, audio, installation, and video. The survey exhibition Carrie Mae Weems' 3 Decades of Photography and Video at the Guggenheim in 2014 traced the evolution of the artist's career over 30 years, from her early documentary and autobiographical photographic series to the conceptual and philosophically complex works that have placed her at the forefront of contemporary art. Carrie Mae Weems mentored Colombian visual artist Camila Rodriguez Triana in 2020. We have also 3 protégés: composer and multi-ability artist Pauchi Sasaki, she's a Peruvian of Japanese descent. She has composed 4 and wide variety of settings, including scoring more than 30 films, and has performed in Latin America, Europe, and throughout the United States in the speaker dress, a wearable sound sculpture created from 100 speakers In 2017, the American Composers Orchestra premiered Gamma 16 at Carnegie Hall in honor of her mentor, Philip Glass. Pauci has mentored by Philip Glass in 2016. Composer Vasco Mendoza from Portugal. Vasco Mendoza works have been commissioned by and featured in major venues and festivals such as Aix-en-Provence, Dutch National Orchestra, Sala Sao Paulo, Philharmonie de Paris, and others. He has also composed for the stage, collaborating with cutting-edge companies and directors. Recent works include the orchestral piece Step Right Up and the children's opera The Girl, the Hunter, and the Wolf. He teaches at the University of Lisbon. He's currently preparing a documentary series for French channel Mezzo on contemporary opera, and in 2022 oversaw the artistic direction of Encontros Sonoros Atlánticos Festival. Vasco Mendoza was mentored by Kaya Sariajo in 2014. The filmmaker Chaitanya Tamhan from India. His debut feature, Kurt, premiered at the Venice Film Festival in 2014, where he was awarded Best Film in the Horizonte category. It went on to win more than 30 awards at festivals worldwide. Tamhane was chosen by The Hollywood Reporter as one of the world's most promising filmmakers under 30, and Kurt was named India's admission for the 2016 Foreign Language Film Oscar. His second feature, The Disciple, released in 2020, has won multiple awards, including Best Feature from the Indian Film Institute and the Fiprezzi Award at the Venice Film Festival. Chaitanya Tamhane was mentored by Alfonso Cuarón in 2016. So, good morning to everybody.
Good morning.
And to begin with, I would like to talk about the mentor and protege relationship. About that very old and unique experience. The history of art is full of memorable pairs, like Titian and El Greco, or Haydn and Beethoven. So I would like your opinion about this unique experience. You can start.
Me?
Yes.
These.
Okay.
Perfect. Great.
You can start.
The I can't quite hear. I'm having a little difficulty. Is it the volume in the room? Can we turn it down just maybe a little bit? Because
Louder?
it's difficult for me to hear you. I think it needs to be a little lower, actually. It feels like it's bouncing around. Do you feel that in the audience?
Yeah.
No?
There's no monitor on stage.
It's no monitor, so we can't. It's difficult to hear. But you were talking about the relationship.
The relationship with, between the mentor and the protege, which I found it's unique and very old in the history of art.
Yes, and I think we should have fun. I think that this is sort of an extraordinary thing. And first of all, I'd love to just say thank you to Rolex and this extraordinary team for bringing us all here to have us all together. It is, I think, to be a really good mentor, to be a really good person. To be a really good person starts with caring about other people. Really, really caring about other people and what they do. Caring about the field, the breadth of art, whether it's music or literature or poetry or dance, I don't really care. It really has to do with this beginning of really caring about somebody else, and embracing someone else, even through all of the difficulty, continuing to embrace and to hold on, to be a kind of an inspiration by how you actually lead your own life. It's how you lead your own life, not right? To be an inspiration, and to be a guide, and to be a helpmate, to be demanding but not domineering, to be encouraging but not dictatorial, right? Because you can't take over somebody else's work. You have to, so that is the tension. The tension is in, understanding your place as a person in support of another person and assisting them in their effort to rise to the best of what they can be and do in their own practice.
Once you said that is knowing how to guide, but not how to direct.
Yeah.
You said that.
That's very wise.
So, Zakir, is your opinion about that, your experience?
Oh my God, it's, how do I, let me follow that up.
Your mentor was your
somewhat
father, isn't it?
I'm somewhat of a skeptic when it comes to using words that come from a lab to describe a creative process in arts. When you talk about alchemy, or you talk about chemistry, or you talk about, to me it's the same as not being able to define what aesthetics is. We have no real definition of the word aesthetics. Similarly, we don't really have, I guess what I'm trying to say is when it comes to the world of music or art, creativity, we must find our own vocabulary to be able to describe that which we do, and that the process that we go through to be able to arrive at a picture or a bouquet of sounds or whatever. So for me, it is an interesting thought when you come together with a protege. It's not that you're trying to establish a chemistry between each other. It's being able to find how each one of us lives, what we eat, what we drink, what our families are all about, where we come from, who our fathers and forefathers are. And when you take those ideas together and you find that you find someone who has had a parallel life, and when that happens, something clicks together, and you've gone through that process. You've been a fly on the wall somewhere when great ones were chatting and interacting, and these young prodigies have done exactly that. When someone like Haji has taken the time to study Indian music, being a fly on the wall when those maestros were teaching and talking amongst each other. Vasco, the same thing with Carnatic music, and Chaitanya has learned his craft being sitting at the feet of great maestros, and that whole process of living and breathing and experiencing the cooking is what I think is all about. But I don't know if that word alchemy aptly describes that this process is all about.
But how do we learn music, and how do we teach music? I think your mentor was your father, the legendary.
Well, in India, we believe that a teacher does not teach. It's the student who extracts the information and learns. It's the student who inspires the transmission, and that happens. It's believed that the teacher is like a fast-flowing river, the knowledge, And it's up to the student to take a mug or a bucket or a truckload of information from there. And so it's always like that. Even with my father, I would be practicing for hours and he wouldn't pay attention. He'd be sitting somewhere else in the another part of the house. I had to make a mistake for him to... And then, once he corrected that mistake, I had to, make sure that I inspired him to carry on by actually doing what was expected of me. And then a chain reaction would occur and information would flow. And so this process would happen. Now, whether that is something that we've developed between ourselves or that's our ammo of learning, but I believe that that teaching is a two-way experience. A teacher learns to teach from the student.
Beautifully
And
said.
Pauci, do you agree about that?
Yes, for sure. I think that really experience completes meaning. We can have an idea of something, like somebody can tell us an idea, but we really won't understand until we experience it. And that's also the right way, I think, to transmit artistry throughout generations, because what we do, artists, is to complete meaning, no? Through our art, through our experience. No? I make a composition, so I make someone else to experience something and to feel a meaning. No? So I think it's very important experience and to spend time. No, I was very lucky to spend time with Philip Glass and as well my colleagues here. So I think it's the only way we can really grab something that helps us, and also to understand that art is not a set of information. Art is a lifestyle. And you understand that by spending time with your mentor.
Vasco?
Well, I think in terms of the learning and the teaching, I mean, for me personally was from a very early age, I was sort of struggling to find a way to express myself, which was, I was not able through words. And so the discovery of music was a sort of a liberation. And regarding your question, how do we learn? I mean, initially you learn music, at least by listening. And so then you sort of try to find out how can you understand what you're listening to. Because I had many times this experience of being in awe by something that the masters were doing or the great composers were doing, but I didn't quite understand how that worked, what exactly was the grammar of that beautiful object that I was facing. And so you sort of try to find mentors as someone who doesn't yet know that they're mentors for you. It's some people who can sort of help you navigating the grammar of what you just saw so that you can yourself produce something else which sort of relates to that. And so then when you find a situation and a setting such as this one, where you actually are able to connect directly with someone you truly admire as a composer, and in my case as a composer, it's really a possibility of straightening those links, of connecting. Something that I think it's important that was said here, it's this human connection. One thing that I remember that during the process that we felt me and Kai, I think we felt very comfortable together. I mean, even the silences, I think there was a good energy between us. Besides, I mean, my admiration for her work, and hopefully her recognition of some of my qualities, but there was something very intense personally in terms of being comfortable, of being able to share with each other things which weren't even music, actually. We didn't start by talking about music, our first conversation, actually. So yeah, so I think it's a perfect setting to feed a need that you possibly we have from an early age, I think.
Yeah. And Chaitanya?
Excuse me. Yeah, for me, it was always a struggle, this idea of a mentor, because I want to be a filmmaker from the age of 18 or 19, but I live in Mumbai, which is the hub in India for mainstream films. When I didn't go to a film school, I didn't assist anybody, so I was always quite desperate for a mentor, but I didn't find the right person in the setup that I was operating in. So I had to kind of concoct the idea of a mentor, by grabbing bits and pieces from different people, but never from the field of film. It was always thinkers and poets and philosophers, and other peers of mine. And I had a couple of opportunities before this program to get to learn from some masters. I was selected for some workshops or some programs. I won't get into the names, but let's say some of the greatest filmmakers of the 20th century. But they were not interested in sharing. I had a terrible experience, actually. And I was quite scarred by that experience, because you could be a master, but I think it's probably almost a different art in terms of wanting to share and be a mentor. So I was actually quite nervous before I met Alfonso, but of course that turned out really, really well. And I learned that, there are certain things you only learn from the process of assimilation, which can only happen by watching them at work. Watching the process, be it, as a fly on the wall or as being a collaborator. But there are certain things certain keys, certain secrets you can't absorb or even, be privy to till you see the inner workings, the behind the scenes. And I agree, because in The Disciple, I interviewed a lot of musicians for the process of the film, and that film is about the idea of the mentor and the student. And a lot of the students said that it's about, a way of life that you imbibe from the mentor. Not just the craft, not just the technique or the aesthetic, outlook of music in this particular case. And I found that to be true in my case too, that I'm also learning how to deal with the frustration that comes with an artistic process, how to deal with the struggles, how to deal with the practicalities of real life, and then also, of course, taste and the craft and other things.
You've been in the shooting of Alfonso's movie, Roma.
Yes. I was there for I think almost 2-3 months, and then I was also there for the post-production in the grade and the sound, and it was in a way a demystification, because I could see the whole thing come together piece by piece, and along the way there were many obstacles and many frustrations, and you also realize, okay, it's not very different, I mean, the process in that sense is the same. It's just the vision and the endurance and the experience and what you get, to the table every time, and you realize it's a fight every time and again, because filmmaking is the opposite of being a solitary pursuit. You're dealing with so many egos and so many people and so many resources, so there's that aspect to it as well. But it was a great privilege for me to
So
get
you
to
learned
see
more things in Roma shooting than in the film school?
I didn't go to film school, that's
you
why.
didn't go.
That's why, yes.
So it's better to be a protege with a great master rather than to be in the film school.
In what I would consider the world's best arts program, yes.
Yeah, because always I was question myself, what do we learn in the film school? I've been in
I
the film
wouldn't
school,
know.
so
I didn't
I've
go.
been in the film school, but I always had this question. But being in a shooting is the same with art school?
How not to be a filmmaker is what you learn in film school. But I think that, the thing that is always so fascinating to me, it is how we learn, the process of learning, the process of looking at the world. That I learn as much from nature, from looking at a bird fly, looking at the river flow, as much as I learn from people. The patience that it takes to look at the world, and then to figure out a way of interpreting that that's meaningful to you into the work? How do you then infuse it in the work? But the deepest thing that we have, the thing that's most fantastic, which is what we saw downstairs a few moments ago, is the element of trust. The element of trust. Because it's the core of all of the work, no matter what it is that we do, how we do it, what the process is, whatever your process is, how you interpret that meaning, the meaning of trust, the trust between the two of us as protégés, the trust between the group of us as panelists, the trust between what has to happen for the audience to trust what they're saying and what we are saying back to them to be real, to be unmitigated, and to be as true as you possibly can be.
Yeah.
And so when I see artifice, when I see that thing that separates me from the truth, it's when I'm most upset, when I'm most disturbed, right? And so this idea, I think, of trust in the relationship between artists and protege, and I am no master. I have no idea what a master is, but I'm not it, I'm sure. Though I deeply admire, and I think when I start every morning listening to music. I start every morning listening to music, and I have for many, many years. Out of all of the arts, music has saved my life. And so I thank you for what you do.
So music is the art of the arts.
Yeah. It is extra, for me it's extra special. It's extra special. Though I love doing what I do.
So about that said about trust, do you agree?
Absolutely, I think, and I was listening to Carrie May, and it's also in your practice, especially when you're doing because music composition, at least for me, it's quite a solitary occupation.
Yeah.
So I long for collaborating with people. Perhaps that's why I've been going into opera so much, and the element of trust, I would completely agree, is the defining element of a successful collaboration. Because once you, even if the decision is not, of your collaborator is not what you anticipated, or if it really surprises you. For me, in my particular case, for instance, working with a director, someone who actually does a very different setting of what you'd expect to do in an opera composition of something. If you trust that person's vision, and if you trust that that person really looks into your work with, with care, then it's something else. It just works.
But Bauchi, what is the secret of trust? How we can find the right person to trust in a collaboration?
Yes, but picking up this conversation, I think something that is more important about this mentorship program is the trust we get with ourselves. So we trust that audience, we trust our collaborators, the musicians, filmmakers, but the most important trust we get throughout this mentorship, I think, is that we start to trust in our vision, our perspective, our own voice, and that's something the most valuable thing I think I got from my experience through this mentorship.
Yeah. Allow me to ask another question about this procedure. What did you remember and keep from your first meeting with Philip Glass, Kaya Sariajo, and Alfonso Cuarón? Rebecca Irving said in an interview that this procedure is quite scary because they basically are throwing strangers together and hoping that something good is going to happen. Finally, many good things happened. But I would like to ask you about this first meeting.
I was, of course, very nervous. And I was like, oh my God, I'm going to meet really, Philip Glass can be my mentor. It was like very out of the earth idea, no? So when I went to meet him at his kitchen, we met at his kitchen in his house, and we had a very nice conversation. And also he showed me his studio. He told me with my first commission, I put all these windows so I can make notes all day long. So it was very nice. And but I remember like very great excitement. And at the end of the meeting, I was like, Philip, I really want to be your protege. Goodbye. Yes.
Let's go.
Yes, we were in Lyon at I think it's some restaurant or at the hotel, and of course I was a bit nervous as well. And so Kai asked me, do you want to eat something? I said, no, I absolutely can't have anything. But she really wanted to know, because the first thing she said was, I've seen and heard your music and everyone, so but I'd rather talk about yourself. I mean, and we talked about, I just had my first child actually 2 weeks before, so I was kind of a parenthood panic. So I think our first conversation was not even about music, it was about that. So we spoke for about, I don't know, 1 hour about what being a parent means, of all things. And I think she was just trying to find out, apart from my music making, what kind of a person I was, and if we could connect on a personal level. I think that was the goal. So no music in the first conversation.
Chaitanya?
I had, very low expectations of actually being selected. I was with the other applicants in the same hotel, and there were 3 really, really talented, really, beautiful filmmakers, and I was like, I have no chance. I have one meeting with him. I'm going to go in, ask him the questions that I want to ask, get that out of the way, and then. So I went in, I was like, how do you deal with failure? How do you deal with studio executives and their notes? Whatever questions I had, I asked him those questions. But then we got along really well. After 10 minutes, we were bitching about other films and other filmmakers. And I came out thinking like, wow, he must be really good at making everyone feel, at home and comfortable. He's really good. But like Pauchi, as I was leaving, I really had no expectation that I'm going to get selected. So as I was leaving, I'm like, okay, also here's some magic for you. And I did some magic for him and I left.
Because in this point, I need to say that he's a real magician.
And also, he was on a jury and he gave an award which I didn't approve of at all. I was like, what was that about? So yes, I got in all my questions. I was like, this is the moment and this is it. But then it turned out differently.
And I have a similar question about Jackie and Karime. How did you choose your protege? What made you realize that Marcos Gilmore and Camila Rodriguez Triana was the one?
Yeah. It was such an amazing process, and I think it's sort of like I think we always know when we're seeing something and witnessing something special. Like you know it. You know it. You don't, it's like falling in love. Like you don't always have the language for this thing that you're feeling, but you know that you're feeling it. And when I met her, we had a wonderful time together. She has this sort of feisty personality, which I really love. It's just like mine, sort of cynical and sarcastic, but also passionate and determined. And I saw it immediately. I saw it in her spirit. And I knew that she was the person that I wanted to work with. And importantly, I knew that she was the person that I was going to learn a great deal from.
Yes.
I knew that I was going to learn as much from her as she was going to learn from me. And I think also, finally, going back to this idea of question, you know, that she had questions, and she was formulating questions in a certain kind of way, that I also understood the level of her seriousness. And finally, I think that there were a set of expectations that I think we both had from one another that we needed to figure out how to express over time. And for me, this idea of expectation goes along with trust. What is the expectation that you have of your mentor, and what are the expectations that your mentor have of you? And it's in working out that balance that growth, I think, really happens, and honesty happens, if you're really honest, and then trust happens. And so it's been an extraordinary process, and I'm so happy that she's here and that we're seeing one another.
So having a mentor is a gift, but having a protege is a gift also.
Absolutely. It is, you know, we're learning from one another. I have so much to know, so much I don't know, so much I want to know. And working with young people is a way of learning, of being in the future and being in the past simultaneously.
And Zaki, tell me about the drummer, Marcus Gilmore.
Yes.
He's an American drummer, isn't
he? I guess I saw a bit of me there. It reminded me of my experience with my teacher, my father, when I saw him. And it was interesting how my father, when I was a little baby, he would sing rhythms in my ear. And he would keep doing that every day. Then I got to a point where I could actually make some sense out of it in my head. And now I needed to get it out. He let me go. I was left to my own devices. He would not guide me in that area. So there was information sitting in here, and I had to figure out a way to be able to now find a way to speak it. You know, create my own way of being able to express it. And I found Marcus to be in the same place. He was, his grandfather, one of the greatest drummers ever. And God bless he's still with us. He's 90-something years old, and he's still playing. So it's amazing. So I saw in him all that information that was sitting in his head, and he was on the periphery when it came to his grandfather, being able to hold his hand and walk him through that process. The thing was, his grandfather wanted him to find his own process. And I was in the same boat. I learned from my father, but I had to find my way to be able to speak what he had given me. That little bit of information is all that I had to give to Marcus. I mean, he was already a work that was right there in front of us in all its glory. And all that he needed was that confidence that he could find his own way, and he could speak his own way. And amongst the 3 or 4 that I talked to and I worked with, I found him to be the one who was open, was not afraid to jump off a cliff without a parachute, to walk into the unknown, and not be threatened by the idea of failure. That was very important. We all worry about that. We all like, okay, I'm going to fail, so I'm not going to take that extra step and be that bold and just play it safe. And that's not where Marcus was. And it felt just that all we needed to do was be able to agree that he can speak the language.
What was the most important lesson you learned from your mentor, your guru, your father?
Mm-hmm. Well, what's important about my father?
The most important lessons you learned from him?
You know, that's something sparked a memory when you talked about nature. And so my father let me be. For 3 or 4 years, he wouldn't sit with me. He would be teaching his students, and I was allowed to sit on the periphery and watch, but not participate. And that was simply because I had to figure out how I was going to inspire him to teach me. And that moment came when I was in one of my school performances at 7 years old. And that night he said, "Would you like to do this seriously?" And I said, "Of course I would." And, you know, he's God to me, and I wanted his attention. And he's finally looking at me and saying, "You want some attention?" And so that was a very important moment for me. And I said, "Yes." So he said, "Tomorrow we start." It was monsoon season, I remember that. "Tomorrow we start." Tomorrow was at 3 o'clock in the morning. He woke me up, a 7-year-old. It was raining. And we sat on the porch. And he did not say anything about music. But he said, "Listen to the rain falling on the roof." And I was listening carefully. And then he said, "Listen to the drops falling off the tiles on the edge onto the ground. And then stretch your head out and listen to the rain falling on the ground. And tell me if you can differentiate or the rhythm that each one of those falling of the drops is creating." It was very interesting for a 7-year-old to be asked that question.
It's a short-length movie, isn't it?
At 3 o'clock in the morning.
I feel a collaboration.
I saw you. I'm sure you're going to do something about that. It's amazing. Thank you.
And that's
really
how it began for me. And from there on in, it was one wondrous discovery after another. You know, one day he just took me to a shrine and we sat there, and he said, "Listen to the drum being played in the shrine. Tell me what the rhythm is, what the pattern is." It wasn't just about his information and his repertoire and his idea, but it was about the whole world of information that I needed to focus on and not just have blinkers. And so that was very special.
Amazing, amazing. But I would like to ask you about your mentor. Who was your mentor, and what do you remember? Yes?
Gary, who are you speaking to?
Your mentor, yes.
Me?
Yes.
Oh, who was my mentor?
Yes. Or mentors.
Well, books and films, friends. I didn't have any in this way that we're talking about. So this project is really very unique. I had much love from my family, from my father, my mother, who was so important to me, that insisted and told me very early on in my life that I had a right to be, that I had a right. But frankly, you know, as one of the senior members on this panel, you know, I'm a woman of a certain age. And so women were really not treated so well. And we were not guided so much. We had to find our own way through a whole host of other circumstances and situations, right? Men never knew if they wanted to talk to me or sleep with me. And somebody said they could do both, if they can. So, you know, but this is really true. So as much as I wanted a mentor, I really didn't have one. I had to really figure out a lot of things on my own through stumbling and falling and failing and getting back up and trying some more. And I think it's probably one of the reasons that I'm so deeply committed to my field in the way that I am, in the way that I sort of think about as somebody like extraordinary Joan Jonas sitting there, who I absolutely love, looking at her books over and over and over and over and over, taught me so much. There are women in this room and men in this room that have taught me so much by simply looking at what they have done, looking at their practice, studying their practice. So, but I can tell you one thing about my mentee, and that is the thing that was so wonderful about working with Camilla, and she is here in the room, was she reminded me of the importance of working with my hands. Like with all of the technology that's around us, all of the machinery that's around us. And I'm a photographer, so there's always this mediation between my physical self and the world that I represent. Yeah. She reminded me of the importance of the hand, right? And it is so distinctive. And maybe that's why I'm collecting autographs for the first time, looking at the hand.
So passing information down to the next generation means everything. But how we can pass down the inspiration? First, how we define the word inspiration?
To be the shit that gets you up in the morning. The stuff that gets you up in the morning, right? Right? The music that gets you up, the literature that gets you up, the spirit of life is the thing that is inspiring, and how artists articulate the lives that they're living and seeing and witnessing through what they make. That's the great inspiration, right? And
well, the fact that you've reached a point where you know exactly what you want to do, that already is inspiring. I mean, there you are, and you now know that this is the path you want to walk. And so you don't have to get up every day to inspire yourself. You've really reached a point where you're going to do something that you love doing. You're going to do something which is not work. It's something joyful. You're going to be in the best playpen in the world, and with the greatest possible toy, and you're going to have a greatest time. I used to watch my father. I keep coming back to my father. He's my teacher, obviously. He's my inspiration. He was 70 years old, 72, 73 years old. He gets on the stage to play. He's an older gentleman. And then he starts to play, and suddenly he becomes a young man. He's smiling, and his smile is lighting up the room, and you can tell that this person is where he wants to be. You can tell that this person is totally at peace with and in total contentment with his environment and his interaction with the spirit of his instrument. And that's such an amazing thing to watch. And I used to hope that when I get to be 70, if I could feel that, even a little bit of that, it would be, life lived well to that point. And so I feel that inspiration is already tied into the work that you're doing. And if you love doing it and you're happy doing it, and it's again, not work, but something that you enjoy, and inspiration should not be difficult to come by. I hope you guys have something to say
about inspiration and how I'm passing down to the next generation.
I think it's very important to love life first, to have inspiration. And sometimes we love movies, for example, with very complex characters, but when we have a very complex character next to us, we run away. So we are not really loving life in its plenitude, no? So I think for inspiration, we first have to learn to love life in all its shadows and lights and complexities, no?
For me, I think it's possibly a combination of an intense curiosity about things. Well, not just how things work, but also how people behave, what's behind the mechanism of the world. It sounds a bit pompous, but I'm really curious about everything, about why that person did that behavior, why that thing works like that. And this is first thing that really gets me up in the morning. And the second is an intense necessity to connect with people and to share something which in a medium I'm sort of capable of. So that it's this combination of being really very curious about things and wanting to share, to establish some form of human connection in my life. Yeah, so that gets me up in the morning.
Yeah. Chirania?
Yeah, I have to agree with this idea of curiosity, and which is also for me this idea of pushing possibilities, the framework of what is possible. For me, that becomes a source of inspiration. Sometimes you see something or you experience something and you're like, oh, I could not even have comprehended that this is possible. In fact, if you speak with Indian classical musicians, they will tell you that what Zakir has done is he's expanded the vocabulary of the tabla. So for me, that is inspiring. That we stop being complacent, or we think that this is the limit of something, and then something comes up, along the way, which opens your mind in a whole different direction.
Do you, I think would be very interesting to see some years from now, Pauci, Vatsko and Chaitanya to become mentors. Do you have people in your surrounding you consider mentors, students, and they learn from you?
Who goes first?
You?
Yeah, there are young people who write to you and come up to you, and I tell them that I'm still learning myself, and I'm actually more open about sharing my mistakes that I have made along the way. Like, I feel that that's the only thing I can share is the mistakes I have made, and in the hope that maybe you make different mistakes and new mistakes, and not the same ones that I made. But yeah.
And I mean, do you first, would you like to be a mentor in a few years and have some protégés around you?
Well, I regularly teach composition.
You're a teacher in the university?
In Lisbon, yeah. But
so you have a lot of protégés around you?
Well, I wouldn't call them. I just always see my students as younger colleagues. So I don't make that distinction between I am the master because I'm in this position, and so it's always someone who has been around for a few more years, perhaps, and perhaps there's some things that they can a second pair of eyes, and of course you all always learn a lot from younger people, and so it's really a bi-directional. It's just two. I think it's just two colleagues, and this is something that I also found very, very generous in Kaya, in her attitude. She sort of explicitly said that, of course, she was this complete heavyweight, but she mentioned this idea of having younger and older colleagues, someone who's just been around for a while and has learned a few more things, and is generous enough to share it.
But I did want to just sort of pick up on this idea about failure, about the role of failure and the role of mistakes, right? That's really where the vast amount of learning really takes place, right?
Yeah.
So in what way do you think that you've failed, right? You know, like what are the things, what are those sort of moments of failure that you've actually learned the most from? I remember doing like an exhibition. It was really awful. Like, oh my God, right? Won't do that again, right? But are there sort of these sort of precise things about failure that that really stick, right? And what does failure look like? Right? Do you understand what I mean? You know, like I'm thinking.
Does failure look like or failure feels like?
Yeah, exactly. It seems to me that you know when I've really fallen flat, and it's so interesting. I would love to know what you all think, because I think that this is, when we're talking about creative alchemy, I think that this is a part of it. When I know that I've fallen flat, it's when I've lied to myself and I've lied to everybody else. That I've not wanted to face, exactly what it was that I was doing. And so that I've tried to figure out a whole series of ways to actually hide what I was doing, right? You know, not to be, going back to this idea of trust, right? So lying to myself and lying to my audience, right, has been my greatest failure, right? Not being able to want to admit that I'm sentimental, not wanting to admit that I'm afraid, not wanting to admit that I actually don't know what I'm doing, right? I mean, those are actually the moments of greatest failure,
Yes.
right? Because you are then not dealing with the reality of your situation. And so I'm wondering how you've experienced difficulty of...
Yeah. Well, I guess when you're a performing artist and you're on stage, you smile your way through all the failures and you hide them as best as you can, and you throw out the idea, oh, that's exactly what I intended to do. and take it from there. So yes, we do, and I guess that's the armor we can take with us. I mean, that we will work around it and we will fail, but we will, just nonchalantly keep walking and keep moving forward. And when we get home, we will stand in front of the mirror and scream at ourselves for having, been an nincompoop on stage. But that's a different private matter there. I guess it's kind of difficult to decide, when you're performing on stage, whether how to, how much to, or how to make that visible or not.
Do you agree, Chaitanya? I saw you.
Yeah, I mean, this is constant work. This is something that I'm always, trying to work on. What I've realized that what separates the greats from the good is not the idea of failure, but the elimination of fear of failure. It's just a battle with the idea of, the fear, because failure is inevitable in any process, and I think the promised land lies beyond failure. Failure is a wall you have to climb, because that's when you take risks. But I'm very afraid of failure. Okay. So that is the constant battle, and that's what you see in the greats, that yes, maybe they fail. It's not like, their work is foolproof, but it's the fear part that you either accept. Yes. And because I was talking to my writer fellow proteges, and I asked them, because I write and I struggle, it takes me 2 years to write the first page. I'm like, is it easy for you guys? Is it easy? And Miro, who's here, he told me the last night that there is a knot in my stomach every time I sit to write. And then I write. So for me, the key takeaway was, okay, there's going to be the knot. and I have to learn to live with this knot
Yeah.
in my stomach.
Yeah, it's also, I mean, sad as it might be, it is, I guess it's my decision to accept that I'm not going to be perfect. That perfection will never be reached or achieved. And so failure and then what lies on the other side of it is just another opportunity to be able to try to do something better. I mean, you can never be the best, but you can always be better. And that, when it's accepted, failure is not a problem.
I would just like to add one more point, is that I think success is also a very big enemy of risk-taking. Because that's when, if you get a little bit of validation, that's when, people start feeling like, oh, if I drift away from this, is when I'm in danger. And again, it's something that you have to, I feel, keep fighting to not do what's worked. And what the gallery owners or the critics or the curators want you to do.
Having said that, it's very different for a performing artist than it would be for a filmmaker. Or for a dancer or somebody. It's not the same because, and especially a performer like me who believes in or deals with spontaneity and improvisation. Things happen there and then they're done. And they are not charted work that will live and stay there. It's just a performance that happens. So failure there is a little bit easier to take because it's not a work written in stone. It's not, you know what I mean, a commissioned piece of music. For that, when that happens, I'm in a whole lot of SHIT that I'm not able to deal with.
I think we have time for one or two questions if you have. A bit delighted to hear. The microphone, wait.
I thought you...
Thank you very much. Actually, I have a question for the whole panel, and maybe somebody could give us some insight. My wife and I have a 15-year-old child who has declared that his career path is going to follow in the arts. And we're hopeful that he might actually be able to make a living in a very demanding field. Unfortunately, my wife and I don't have any arts background. My wife's in medicine, I'm in business. We're trying to be supportive parents. So we employ a number of artists to help build and develop our son's skill. But I'm wondering how a child at 15 years old can get an unbiased mentor to give him some direction rather than the people that I pay. It seems like the more that I pay them, the better they say he gets. But I'm not able to gauge that, and I'm looking to find out how we find a mentor that's willing to give their time and direction, and I don't have to write a check. Thank you.
Who wants to answer? Zakir?
I guess you got to find someone who would be able to determine whether your child has what it takes to be an artist. That is the first important thing. I mean, you can keep paying for lessons, but if that's not in his or her DNA, and then what's the point in it? That's one. Secondly, whether the idea is just to be a musician of just as an interest, as a passing interest, or to be somebody who wants to get some information about music and art and not necessarily wants to be a professional musician. So these things have to be determined before you want to, pour, hell of a lot of money into this system. You're going to have, it's interesting. In India, we do things differently. Teachers take on students when they know that this person has some talent. And when that happens, the student becomes part of the family of the teacher. And then the teacher actually looks after the student. you know, education, clothing, feeding, everything. And that's what a guru does. And so that's a whole different thing where I have musicians like late Pandit Shiv Kumar or Pandit Jasraj and all, who traveled with a whole bunch of students. They'd bring them along with them to concerts so that they could teach them and they could learn, you know, hands-on what was going on. So that kind of process does not take place in the West. And so the main thing to determine is whether your child has what it takes to be either a professional or just somebody who's going to know the information and maybe become a teacher or something himself or herself.
May I say something?
Yes, of course.
Art is not like Lego pieces, that you buy a Lego pieces and you say, I want to build a castle, and you end up having a castle. Art is very metaphysical, so you never know where you are going to end up. You never know from where comes the inspiration, who is going to become your mentor. It's like the realm of the unknown. So I know that maybe you as parents, I'm also a mother, you are like so eager to know the future and to build a safe path. But the path of the art is the most unsafest. And the only thing that you can tell your kid is, again, the idea of failure, to don't have fear, because fear makes things bigger. Like if we fall in this floor, we fall, no? And for me, it's just 1.5 meters. I just fall. Yeah. But somehow in our brains, fear makes us to transform this 1.5 meters in an abysmal, in abyss. No? So the only thing I could tell to your kid is that don't be afraid. There is not abyss. No? Just the floor, and then you get up and you keep working, no?
Another question, maybe?
We've answered them all.
So
on behalf of everyone, I think, in the room, I would like to ask Chaitanya to do a magic trick.
No. You planted that, I know it.
I didn't.
Planted this question, I know this.
But truly, he's a magician. So yes, another question, maybe the last one. There in the front line.
Sorry, it's not a question exactly. I just wanted to quote Namjoon Paik, who said, and I always think of it, there's no such thing as a mistake.
Thank you. Maybe the last question? There.
Do you think that every established artist could be a mentor, is suitable for a mentor, or it takes something else?
Well, I suppose it's like Joan just said, there are no mistakes. So, it's all about people learning from, it's just all about what you're ready for and what you're open to and your ability to pay attention, to care. So in one way, we're all mentors. We're all living, we're all growing, we're all changing, we're all evolving, we're all failing, we're all stumbling. We're all trying to figure out really how to respond to the world around us as artists, as people, as humans. And I think that's, so whether it's your child trying to figure out if they're going to be an artist or not, you're just trying to figure it out, how to be in this world. how to be in this world, is the only question. And trying to make that decision is the hardest thing and the easiest thing that we do, right? And I mean, I knew I was going to be an artist by the time I was 6 or 7. I was just so weird. You know, and I couldn't imagine doing anything else. I couldn't imagine being at the post office, you know, or being in a bank or any of those things. I saw my life. I knew that I was going to be involved in this thing, and that I was going to have to figure it out. But that the most important thing was that I wanted to say something about the world in a way that I could only understand it to be in some other form, right? Some painting, some drawing, some music, some speech, right? Something. But and it is, and I'm so grateful. I think I'm so grateful to my parents for allowing me to stumble through. And they didn't put up any money, right? It was like, you know, go figure it out, kiddo. You know, you can go to school, right? We went to public school and got wonderful teachers. You know, I still only remember like 3 of them, you know. From all the time I was in school through high school, I remember only 3 who were the people who seemed to care the most about me, who introduced me to something that they knew I needed to see. Back to trust and to mentorship. So,
Bravo.
I think we should end now.
Yes.
Yeah.
I think we should, can we look at our watches? I think so what time is it? We have to all look at our watches.
Thank you so much.
Fantastic panel. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Thank you.
Thank you, Orestis.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Wonderful. So I'd
It's an
ask
honor
you
to be
kindly now to swiftly leave the auditorium so we can set up for the final event, a half an hour of dance, a double bill. I'll see you back here shortly. Thank you.